Tanuja Ramchal, Career Advisor at the Graduate Career Management Center here at the Siklan School of Business. And today I am here with Eileen Marray. Eileen is an MS in Finance student and she'll be graduating in December.
Right. Hello, everyone.
And I'm so excited to be talking to you, Eileen, because I've seen you grow so much in the course of the last 2 years or so. And I think your story as well in terms of all of the actions you've taken and how you've basically transformed in this process and landed the job that you wanted. So first of all, thank you so much for being willing to share this.
Thank you for having me.
And I wanted to start from the beginning, right? Because I remember you telling me when you first came in, you did orientation and you saw all of these international students, because you are an international student, and they were telling their stories, and you said, well, that seemed like the exception.
Yeah. So, I think graduate school in general can be very overwhelming, but being an international student, being in like a new environment, it just adds another layer of challenges. And I remember, talking to other international students or hearing their stories at like orientation events, and like you said, I was just thinking, okay, they're the exception. It seemed so far away, especially in the beginning. And I think I had a different mindset at the time too. I was only looking at things, seeing the obstacles and not the opportunities available to me. Okay. Yeah.
And I know you actually came into GCMC initially in your first semester. You came in.
Right.
You got your resume reviewed.
Right.
But then you didn't come in for a while.
Yeah. So like most people, I came into GCMC just to unlock the Zicklin Career Link account. And then I never came back. And it really was because I wasn't aware in the beginning about all the services GCMC offered. Like, I thought GCMC was just here to check your resume once, you get your account unlocked, and then you just apply.
And you do it all on your own.
And I did, yeah. Right. And you just do it all on your own. So that's what I did. And I guess in a way, I feel like I kind of wasted that first semester because all I did was unlock my account, I sent out a few applications, and that was it. And of course nothing happened.
So no results. And I know also sometimes in your first semester it can seem like you have a long time in order to make this happen.
Right, so you tend to put things off because you say, oh, I'm in my first semester, I have lots of time left. So I did that as well.
All right. And especially as an international student, you're still adjusting. Coming to New York, or if you're just like coming back to school or whatever, it's a new environment. So it's understandable. And then I remember us meeting I did a workshop for international students on how to really succeed in your job search.
Right.
And you were at that workshop.
Yes.
Yes.
So I was at that workshop. That's when I met you for the first time. And that workshop actually is where I learned about some of the services offered by GCMC. And that was towards the end of my first semester. So then I decided maybe I should start meeting with an advisor and, doing some of the things that you talked about, like getting an action plan and, meeting with someone regularly.
Having the accountability and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you making that appointment with me, having that initial appointment, and we start talking about, so what are the steps you're going to take to get where you want to go.
Right, yes.
And prior to that, I remember you saying that you, that you were looking to have some experience on campus, and you you applied for a GA position, and what happened?
So I wanted to get some experience on campus, and I decided to apply for the graduate assistantship position. But Baruch sends out an email to everyone with the application. You fill it out. And I was out of state at the time, and I got an email from a professor. This was in January, so during the winter break. So I got an email from a professor asking to meet, and I immediately replied yes, even though I didn't have my laptop with me, did not have access to my resume, and I was going to get in New York a few hours before our meeting.
And come to the interview.
So I was giving myself no time to prepare, but I completely underestimated the situation.
Right.
I felt like, oh, it's a GA position.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be
I just show up and I don't get it.
Yeah.
Right. Uh-huh.
He probably just wants to meet, get to know me. And then when I showed up, I remember walking into his office and seeing like 5 other resumes on the table. And that's when I thought, oh, this is going to be an interview. There are other people vying for this position. And it was a complete disaster because he asked me things that were on my resume, like questions about projects that I did in the previous semester, and I hadn't even gone over my resume in like
so you
weeks.
couldn't even talk about that.
So I couldn't even talk about that. So it did not end well.
Right.
And I remember walking out of that interview and just feeling really disappointed in myself because I completely blew an opportunity that I had, and it was just my fault, no one else's.
Right.
And it was because I underestimated the situation. So that was an important lesson that I learned from that.
And a great wake-up call, because one of the things as well that when you had started meeting with me, there was an opening at GCMC in terms of a GA position, and you were ready in terms of being ready for for interviewing and for getting that role. So you ended up getting the role, and you ended up working here at GCMC.
I did. So again, another lesson I learned from that experience was just to, instead of sulking about something and being disappointed, just accept the situation, own your mistakes, and move forward. And that's what I did. And I found out about the GCMC position actually the exact same day because I was already on campus. I felt really bad about what had just happened. And I said to myself, maybe I should go into GCMC, talk to an advisor, try to get this job search thing going. Right. And came in here, ended up finding out that you guys were looking for a GA. And I was able to prepare for that and ultimately get it.
Exactly, and you ended up getting that job. And also one of the things that you told me is how that job actually transformed your view of GCMC. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So after I started working at GCMC, that's when I realized just how much GCMC does for students and just exactly what they offer. GCMC doesn't just help you fix your resume and get your account unblocked. They help you target your resume to a specific role. They help you create cover letters, come up with a career plan, and the advisors they genuinely are invested in your success. It's not just a job to them. I've seen that. The advisors genuinely want you to succeed. They want to help you find the right path for you and then help you get there.
And one of the things I remember you also telling me was that what was surprising was that you would see students coming out of an appointment and they would actually book another appointment right away. And this was not something that you had initially done. When you booked your first appointment, you came in for the resume review and you were like, okay, I'm done. My resume is approved in the system. I can now go ahead and apply for jobs. But you didn't think of,
Right. So I wasn't thinking, that's another thing. Even though I found out that they help with resumes and cover letters, I was thinking of it as like a one-time visit. You go in one time, you get a cover letter done, and that's it. But one thing that really struck me was working here, I kept seeing the same students over and over and over again. They would get out of one advising session and they would immediately come to me to book another appointment. And then I felt like, wow, these students are really proactive. Right. Maybe this is what I should be doing.
And it was something that shifted for you, and that all started happening in your second semester here, and that was actually so that was in 2017.
Yes.
And I remember at the beginning of this year, so you came in and you had an appointment with me and you were like, wow, I can't believe all of the things that have happened in the last year.
Yes.
And it was like, even if I look at your resume, it was just completely different. You were a very different candidate than you were back in the beginning of 2017. So talk about what you did and what changed and what shifted for you in that period.
Okay, so the first thing I did was working here, I started meeting with an advisor, you actually. I started meeting with you regularly, and you helped me create a plan. Once I had the plan, I could then decide how I was going to try to execute that plan. And one thing that really helped me was the fact that I had an advisor, it made me accountable to someone. And when I was just accountable to myself, I was very easy on myself. But knowing that, okay, I was going to meet Tanuja next week, and she would ask me, what have you done so far? What progress have you made? That actually motivated me to get up and get things done. So I started sending out applications. I used Zicklin Career Link. I also used Indeed, LinkedIn. And I also started attending networking events. Yep. So I started attending networking events. I joined the Zicklin Investment Club and the Zicklin Women in Business. I started volunteering, trying to do as much as possible to just add to my resume and make it better, because I didn't have much experience.
Right.
And also I leveraged my school projects to, kind of improve my resume. And I had one quote that I really like is, I was watching an interview with Ginny Romedy from IBM, the CEO of IBM, and she said growth and comfort don't coexist.
Right.
And I remember seeing that interview last year and thinking, wow, that really struck me, because I absolutely hated networking, because I was approaching it in a very different way.
Right.
I was seeing it as just, okay, it's like me just going to try to get something, get an offer, get a job.
Yeah, right, because it was, I need a job, I need to...
Yeah, but when I started thinking of it in a different way, that, okay, networking is not necessarily going to lead to a job or an offer or a callback, but it's a way for me to become more confident, to learn more about the industry. Because every single person I talked to in a networking event, I learned something new from them.
Right.
And even if I didn't have anything to say, I had a lot of questions to ask, and I listened. And then at the next event, or the next person I talked to, I had more to say. So that really helped as well. And I think that combination of applying for jobs, networking, being active in clubs on campus, that was a great combination. It helped me to really improve my resume, and I ended up getting a call for an interview for a summer internship. That was last year.
Right. And the other thing is your GPA was also very high.
Right, and then of course, you're in graduate school, of course, trying to get, maintain a high GPA. Or a pretty good GPA.
And so you ended up getting this job in credit analysis.
Yes. So I ended up getting a job as a credit analyst for summer of last year. And again, I told myself I am going to try to just do my very best, give 110% to this role, and that position ended up getting extended.
Right.
So that turned into a fall internship.
Yeah. And I remember when you were actually interviewing for that position, you said, you were able to draw on stories based on your experience, because you're from Guyana, so you had like a job working in a bank, an entry-level position working in a bank there, and you didn't think that experience was valuable, and you didn't think that it was something that you should be talking a lot about, but you realized that there were stories in there that you were able to share. To show the value that you had to offer. Yeah,
and actually that was based on your advice, partly because I remember when I first started meeting with you and we started executing my plan and I did some mock interviews with you, I would not mention that experience. And I remember you asked me, why don't you talk about this experience? And I said, oh, well, I don't think it's relevant. It was like a small retail bank and it was outside of the US. But then, you said, anything can be relevant. You have to be able to use it and leverage it.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. In that interview, I actually used that experience. I talked about it. Even if it's not in the same field, you can use it to show how you were a team player or how you had.
If you can put it in the right context, right?
You can put any story in, if you can put it in the right context, you can make it work.
Right, and and as a result, you got the job. It got extended, and then they wanted to extend you again, and then you decided, because you had an offer again at that time. So you interviewed, did OCR.
Yeah. So then I did OCR, and the job that I had last year, the internship that I had as a credit analyst, it was great, but it wasn't in the exact field that I wanted to be in. But so I decided not to extend it for a third time. And I did OCR, and I had the opportunity to interview for a field that I wanted to be in. And again, I was able to use my experiences from back home as well as from this that previous internship, and
ended up getting the internship for the following summer. Yeah. And that's when you actually, so prior to that, let's just go back for a second. Prior to that, you decided you were going to graduate a semester later. Yes. Because for you had to do the prerequisites and everything else, and it made sense that you graduate in December instead of graduating in May.
Right. So I had enough credits left that I could do that, and I decided to do that because to give myself the opportunity to intern, because the internship that I applied for, you had to be a student still in the summer in order to do the internship. So I pushed my graduation back to
one
December.
semester. And for you, this was actually a really great strategy in terms of slowing it down, because a lot of times I see people like faster, let me get it over with, but sometimes that can actually end up backfiring if you don't have the relevant experience and all of that.
And that's another thing about just having a plan and strategizing. It's not necessarily about finishing the fastest. It's about using everything to your advantage. If you have enough credits left and you can extend your graduation date and that would help, you should.
And that's something that we actually spoke about in terms of in terms of moving the graduation date and how does that fit in with your plan and all of that. Right. Because as well as an international student, you have to consider, there are many other things that you have to consider.
Right.
And you want to make sure that you're not like violating any laws or
right. So as long as you have the if you have enough credits and you're able to, it's a great opportunity to give yourself some more time if you haven't found the right job yet.
Right, and if you need more time in order to that, and that ended up working out really well for you. So you had this internship at this big bank in the summer, and they loved you, and they extended a full-time offer to you.
Yes, so I'm going to be starting there in February. I still can't believe it. It all seems unreal because like you said earlier, when I met with you, started meeting with you last year, I mean, so much has happened since then. It's unbelievable. And I guess that's the lesson, that a lot can happen in a short amount of time if you just, you take the right steps.
And stay focused, because that's one of the things with you. It's like, I think you are just very focused on where you want to go. And a lot of times what I see is just people being very scattered. It's all over the place, applying to everything. And that wasn't the case with you, because you actually, had narrowed it down to what you wanted. Right. And were also very selective in terms of what you were choosing. And it was wasn't just apply to every job that's out there.
I was like that in the beginning, I think. In my early last year when I was applying, I was just applying to anything and everything that I was qualified for that I could. But it still didn't result in anything much. I was thinking of it as a numbers game. Right. Okay, if you apply to this amount of jobs, you get callbacks from 10%, something's going to work out. But that's not how it works. It's definitely quality over quantity.
Right, and that was also part of the process that we worked on your resume, in terms of making that resume relevant for what you were applying for, rather than making it such a general resume that nobody knew what it was for.
Exactly. Targeting your resume to different roles is really important, as well as cover letters. I remember when I interviewed with the big bank for the summer internship that I did this year, a cover letter was not required, but I did one anyways. And when I did my on-campus interview, because that was OCR, the first thing the interviewer said to me was, I noticed you did a cover letter, you're the only one who did that, that's really impressive. And immediately I differentiated myself from everyone else. It's just a little thing, but he remembered that.
Right, and I think cover letter, I always say this to students. I said, if you're gonna write a cover letter, just don't write a cover letter, because for you actually took the time and
I targeted it to
exactly
role.
So if you're gonna write a great cover letter, that's awesome, but if you're gonna just write a cover letter for the sake of writing a cover letter, you might as well not write a cover letter, because this is something that I see come up often. I have to write a cover letter, and it's just this template somebody takes off from Google and they just slap on a piece of paper, and that's not good enough.
Generic.
It's really, you have to go deep. You have to ensure that you're really aligned, showing how you're aligned with the role, and putting something that's very thoughtful on paper. And I know in terms of, I think the choices that you've made since last year, and it's just been very, it's been very intentional in terms of getting where you want to go. So I don't think, I was not surprised at all when you ended up with this full-time offer, because I've seen the work that you've put in. I see the focus that you've had and the consistency in terms of just showing up, coming to GCMC, because you and I met like frequently, and even after you got your internship, you still were coming in, and we were talking about strategy. And I think, if you're just throwing spaghetti against a wall, this process is not going to work. It's not going to work really well, and it's going to be overwhelming. But I think once you have that plan, and once you're taking steps toward that, you can actually get the results that you want.
Yeah. Also, when I got my first internship, it was great. I liked it, but the company, I knew that it wasn't going to be a permanent thing because of the situation of the company. It was a smaller company,
right?
And so I didn't just sit there. I still continued to meet with you and continue to work on the next step.
Right.
I mean, it's important to be in the moment and learn and enjoy what you have, but also to think about what's next.
And that comes back to your quote about growth and comfort can't exist together, because if you're getting complacent and you're just sitting there, okay, so I have a internship now and this is all great, and you're not thinking about, okay, so how do I use this as a stepping stone to something else? And even now, as you're going into this job, it's about also continuing to grow and continuing to develop, as opposed to I have the job, well, now I'm just going to sit back and I'm not going to do anything. The process still continues.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I've things have worked out for me, because that's the way I think of things when I'm in it. Like, what's next? Again, when I did the internship at the big bank, it wasn't just, okay, I got the internship, this is great, I'm going to enjoy my summer. It was, yes, I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm also going to think of it in terms of, how do I turn this into a full-time offer?
Right. And I remember once we were talking about a presentation you had to do, and you actually spent, a lot of time putting effort into that presentation, and even staying late at work to make sure that you were doing a great job at the presentation, because this was something that was so important to you. As opposed to just going out and going to happy hour and
I mean, go to happy hour, but also
network, like doing that, and that you want to make sure you're having those networking opportunities, but at the same time making sure that you're staying committed to what it is that you want.
Right. I think it's finding the right balance. Same thing with when you're looking for a job. Yes, you send out a lot of applications, you have to, but also balance that off with networking and other things like being active in clubs, volunteering.
And I've interviewed several other students as part of the series, and they also say, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, make sure that you're taking care of your health, make sure that you're getting enough sleep, because I see a lot of times students sacrifice those things, and it ends up again coming back to haunt them.
Absolutely.
When they're not taking care of their health. Anything else you want to share, Eileen?
Just, I guess the only thing I would say to someone who is in a situation where they're looking for a job, or they're looking for an internship, and it's just not happening. It might sound very generic, but don't give up, because it might be that next application that you send out, or that next phone call, or that next person that you choose to talk to, or the next networking event that you go to can make all the difference. And just, if you ever mess up an interview, or just accept it, learn from it, own your mistakes, and move forward.
Yeah, and grow from it, like you did.
And grow from it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think just the steps that you've taken, shows that level of commitment in terms of your career goal. And I have no doubt that you'll keep building on this.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everything. And also, my advice to anyone who's watching this would be to definitely use the services offered by GCMC. They're here to help. They have so much to offer. And
you're a testament to that.
And I'm a testament to that.
All right. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, everybody, for watching.